Alright, welcome everybody. My name is Christian. I'm going to be playing War of the Ring, the base version of the game with my friend Pablo, and he hasn't played before, so I'm going to give him a quick rundown on how to play, and then as a separate video we'll start playing. So there's Free Peoples, and then there's the Shadow player. So the Free Peoples are Gondor, Rohan, Elves, Men in the North, and Dwarves. So that's 6 or 5 versus the 3 Isengard, Mordor, well, Saruman essentially, because it also includes the Goblins of Moria, and then the Easterlings. And there are 2 paths of victory. There is the ring path, in which the Free People will try to get the Fellowship, which is this piece, from Rivendell all the way to the crack of Mount Doom, and then the ring is destroyed and the Free Peoples win. Or for the Shadow player, as more corruption gets added from successful hunts for the ring, that once it reaches 12, the evil player wins. There's a separate victory path, which would be if the evil player gets 10 victory points from cities like Minas Tirith and Edoras and other places like that. And then the Free People, they only need to get 4, which they can get from Orthanc or Moria, or if you really leave Minas Morgul undefended, which would be pretty rare. The combat is a max of 5 dice, so even if you have more than 5 units, only 5 of them could be at the battle at a time, but for each round, those replacements, like if you have 6 and then 1 dies, then you would roll 5 again. And for most combat, 5s and 6s are successes. Only 5s and 6s. The time that is different is that if you're fighting in a fortification like Osgiliath or the Fords of Isen, then as well as cities like Dol Amroth and Minas Tirith, for the first round of combat, the Free People get hits on 5s and 6s, but the evil player would only get successes from just 6s. That's only in the first round of combat. After that, it goes back to being even-sided. For cities and fortifications, that's the end of the benefit. That's all there is. But for strongholds, which are the rectangles, the larger cities, or the better fortifications, or better strongholds, which is the technical term, like Helm's Deep, Minas Tirith, Lorien, places like that. What happens is they can actually retreat into the city, and then you have to do a separate attack to press a separate dice in order to continue the attack. So for the first round of combat, when you do that attack, and actually what could happen is let's say you move into a region. I can either decide to fight you on the field, or I can say I'm retreating into the city. Then you would have to do a second dice during your turn in order to actually attack the city. If they're in there, they're under siege, and they're placed on. I need to raise this up just a little bit. So that's the strong advantage of having it under siege, is not only do they have to essentially attack twice, but that's good. But the defenders get essentially twice as likely to actually do damage.
Okay.
And so you do the first round of combat, which say these guys are attacking these guys, and we'll just throw in an elite. So let's say end of the first combat, this is what's left. I have 3 guys, you have 4 guys. In order to continue the attack, you actually have to downgrade an elite to a regular, and then you attack. So that's why it's essentially like the elites are helping you continue the attack. If you don't have an elite, then you can only do that 1 round, and then you would have to use a whole nother dice later on in attack. But again, that would be another first round of combat, and then I would have the advantage. So ideally, you don't want to attack one of my strongholds until you know you have enough troops that you can take it, unless you want me to, unless you just want to siege it. So I can't, because I can't recruit inside the city that's sieged. So maybe you want to go ahead and do that, and then if you know troops are coming, but don't start attacking until, don't actually start the assault on the city until you know you can defeat it. Where is this? I'll have to look it up. So that's how combat works. The dice is relative, is very important. They are different. They're similar symbols, but they're slightly different just based on the different races, and so we'll go through all the different symbols stuff. So both have character action. So this is what I would use to move the fellowship or move leaders. Leaders are the ones with the flags, or the fellowship members, in or out of the board. So I can either move one leader with this army to a place, or including an attack with this action, or I could try to move the fellowship. For the evil side, you can move one of your characters once you get them, like Saruman or the Mouth of Sauron. Or you can move all the Nazgul wherever they want, because they can fly. So you could say, I want 2 Nazgul here, I want a Nazgul over there, and a Nazgul over there. You can move them wherever you want. So that's actually a really cool power. You can, and the Nazgul act as leaders, and I'll explain. Well, actually, leaders, they allow you to do a reroll. So if I had these 3 guys, I would roll 3 dice. None of these are a hit. So since I have 1 leader, I will get to do 1 reroll. So that's what leaders do. Same thing with Nazgul. Then this is the muster icon, which is the helmet, which I will have to post up. It's but it's a helmet icon, and you can either muster in 2 different ways. You can move one of your nations closer to war, and so they can actually build troops, or if a country is already at war, then it can do a recruitment. You can either recruit 2 regular, 1 elite, or 2 leaders, or like a combination of 1 regular and 1 leader. So it's kind of like Axis and Allies in transport. You can have like 2 health worth of stuff when you recruit. But if you're building 2 different things, it has to be done in 2 different locations.
So one will go in one place and wherever.
Right, and you can build wherever there's a city or a settlement, which is these symbols. But you can only muster in your own location. So even if the Easterlings hold Pelling or whatever, they can't muster in there. They would only be able to muster from here and then move the troops up. Same thing if I take Orthac, I can't muster there. It's essentially there's no like population that I can. And what's very important for the humans compared to the shadow player in the elves and the dwarves is there's only a certain amount of troops that you can even muster to. Like this is all I could ever possibly muster. Once a unit dies in battle, it's dead forever. But your guys, once an orc dies, I just need to go to the mud pits and pull another one out. It's no big deal. They're an endless horde. This is just a muster or an army movement, which is a thing that I didn't bring up. Oh, is there no just? Oh, that's interesting. I always have more flexibility. So a army movement is either I can move 2 armies, 2 different armies, 1 space, or I can do 1 attack. So if there's no combat involved, I can move this guy and then I can move this one here. Or if there's an attack, it would be just that 1 attack. And you don't need a leader in those armies. So that's why, for this one, you need an army movement. You couldn't do it with a character. But for this one, you can use that dice to move one Nazgul with an army. You can't move all the Nazgul that have armies, but you can move either all the Nazgul or one Nazgul with an army. Same, or the Witch King once you get those. These are event symbols, which are just the cards, which we'll talk about later. And then there's ones that are a little special. These are, hunt for the ring, eye. So whenever you roll these, they go into here, which makes your hunt for the ring, if I move, more successful. And this is Will the West for me. And if I do a Will the West, I can either use it to get Aragorn or Gandalf if I've met the conditions, or I can change this to whatever thing I want. And that's the advantage of the Will West. I can also use the 3 Elven Rings of Power. They're tokens up here. I can use, if I use it, I can change something to any face that I want other than the Will of the West, and then it goes to you, and then you have it. And what you can use it for is you can turn a dice roll into an eye, and that is most useful when I'm going up Mount Doom and you're desperately trying to find me. But once you use it, then it gets burned and it's gone forever. Okay. So I use it once, you use it once, and it's gone.
Okay.
So the Fellowship is all together right now. After the Council of Elrond and Rivendell up here, they're all together. So when I move, they're technically all here. And every time I move them up one space from here. So if I'm here, the icon stays in Rivendell. You don't know where I am, but I'm 2 spaces away from Rivendell. And what would happen is I would use one of my character icons, and then let's say you had 2 eyes in here. You would roll 2 dice, and if you roll a 6, then you found the Fellowship. Or they came across one of your parties. And there's actually a black bag. I think it may have fallen on the ground.
Is it still in the box?
Yes, it is. So what would happen is, if that was a 6, you would draw one of these, and then something would happen to it. So this one means I'm revealed, and as many successes that you had, I take that much damage. So you would have had to get at least 1 success. So I would take 1 damage, and it would be revealed. So I would this goes back to 0, but they're 2 away from Rivendell. So I would have to choose where it would go. So I would go, alright, they went here, and then they went there. So that's now where they are at 0. And from that point on, I would move that many spaces from that location. You can only dedicate as many dices in here as the members of the Fellowship that are still alive. This is essentially you trying to corrupt one of the members. You're tempting them.
So how can I corrupt one?
So what happens is let's say this is 3. So if you drew that would be 3 damage. Mm-hmm. So that means either the Fellowship is going to be corrupted by 3, or I could choose to either have the guide or one random Fellowship member die. Mm-hmm. And what would happen is the guide starts off always as Gandalf, and if he dies, he's the only one I have a chance to bring back as Gandalf the White. He's Gandalf the Grey right now, which is Gandalf the White's over here.
No.
So he's the only one that he can die and come back. All those other ones, once they're dead, they're dead. They're Boromir, they're Sean Bean, they're dead forever. So if I would say Aragorn is the lead, or Stride. Technically, he starts out as Strider. Strider's the leader. I don't want him to take the damage because he can become Aragorn and become way more powerful. So I'll choose a random member. You would choose one of those dice tokens that are, or one of those cardboard cutouts, and whoever that member is, it dies, and they have a value, and it would be that value subtracted by this. Only Aragorn and Gandalf are worth 3. So if it was Boromir, it would be worth 2, and then there would be a net 1 corruption, even though I lost a member. So you're always trying to have a balance of these fellowship members are buffers of damage to Frodo, because once you hits 12, like the game's over, you won. And it can only go down if it's like a certain card or if I declare that they're in a friendly city. So like, just like in the movies, they were in Lorien and they were, they rested there for a while. So every turn that I choose to stay put in Lorien, I can reduce 1 damage.
Okay.
But if they're there resting, then they're not moving towards Mount Doom either. So that gives you more time to do a military victory. So it's a balance for the free people of, if I lose the game and they only had 3 corruption, then like I still lost the game. But if I win the game and they have 11 corruption, like, well, it's better that the ring actually gets destroyed. So those are the two, in like every turn you have to dedicate a certain number of your dice that go to just searching for the ring, and you won't be able to do other stuff with it instead. So and every time I use a character die to move the fellowship, I'm not moving an army, or I'm not moving I'm not moving Gandalf to Minas Tirith to defend it. So that's essentially the gist of it. That's the 16 minutes view. Every turn we get 2 cards, and it does whatever is. Actually, I will explain quickly the cards. You get, one is like a character, and one's kind of like a muster kind of theme, and every turn you get 1 of each. There's 2 writings on it. One is a normal play, like you use these symbols and then you play it, or whatever this equivalent symbol is. So for this one, you use the character.
Okay.
And you can either use the character or that fate symbol, or for this one you would use the muster symbol, or the little globe. So that would be the top version of the text. The bottom version is different. It's like whenever you do a round of combat, you can choose to play one of these cards. You can only, but if you use it, then you can't use the top text ability. But maybe the top text ability isn't like practical anymore. Like there's one where a skill gets reinforced with Faramir's Rangers. But if I already lost a skill, then it doesn't matter. So I would be more willing to do like the bottom version of it.
If you do the top, you can do the top one first and then the bottom?
No, if you use the top, then the card's used up. If you use the bottom, the card's used up.
Oh, so you can only pick one.
You can only pick one.
Oh, okay.
And so, but they're used in 2 different circumstances. One is like, okay, I'm using this dice, I'm going to do this card as my action. And then the other one is, whenever there's a first round of combat, you don't have to give up anything to use it. And you can only have 6 cards in your hand at a time.
Okay.
So if you're running out of space and you're going to get another 2 cards, you just as well, like, okay, this could prevent me losing 1 more guy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and use it. And so that's the gist of it. Elites are worth 2 health. Regulars are worth 1 health. So that's why elites are, better. So like if there are 2 hits, I can either lose 2 regular guys, or I can lose just 1 elite. An elite only rolls 1 dice, but it absorbs 2 health. Or I can downgrade if you do 1 damage instead of losing a regular, and so like for this situation, I would roll 4 dice. So let's say you do 1 damage to me. If I took 1 guy away, I would only roll 3 dice. But if I downgrade him to a regular, that's still 1 damage, but I'm still rolling 4 dice.
Okay.
So there's a lot of advantages to having elites.
So if you downgrade an elite, does he go back over there, or is he dead?
He goes back over here, or I think if I choose to, I'll shoot. I gotta verify that. That's a good question. He may actually be dead if you downgrade. Yeah. Unless I think he's dead.
Okay.
I'll put if it's the other way around, I'll put it like in the description. But I believe he's dead and dead forever. That's good for the evil side. Alright, I think that's it. So that is that. So